Do something. We have everything. I'm recovering from, now it's been a month and a half recovering from a cough, so we'll see how I do. Thinking about it, I didn't cough until I thought about coughing.
Do you have cough drops?
Yeah, I think I have them. Let me grab them here. I'm going to put them right here. That's funny. As soon as I think about it, it starts coughing. I did good all day.
The pressure.
Yeah.
Promise it's worth it.
Yeah. I'm not sure, are we running or not?
Yeah.
Usually, I don't know if he pushed.
You're live.
It's a.
People are.
Okay, good. Thank you. Mangalam Gurudevaya Devya Matriksha Mangalam Bhakta Brindebhyo Sarvalokaya Mangalam Stapakaya Chidharmasya Sarvadharma Swarupini Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishnaya Mangalam Sarashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Majamamashmarachara Prayantam Vande Gurum Paramparam Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Gurudeva Maheshwara Gurudeva Param Brahman Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Bhadrakali Namo Nityam Saraswati Namo Namaha Vera Viranga Vedanta Vijastana Evacha Sri Ganeshaya Namaha. Microphone. I forgot the speaking mic. Stephanie, you think you got it? Yeah, just whatever you think. You start open. Thank you. Yeah, if it gets cooler. Thank you, Swamiji. Hari Om. That might also help. Hari Om. It's loud enough in the back? I mean, you can...
Is it loud enough back there? Can you hear it?
Hari Om, Hari Om. Okay, thank you. I don't have much strength in my voice, so... Thank you, Swamiji. So, sorry, being 12 minutes late. Sorry. We're continuing our discussion on, we started 3 weeks ago. It's a series I've conceptualized giving for a long time on Principles of Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is the path of devotion, the method, Bhakti Marg, the path of devotion. And so we started with, we start with principles, and we start with like foundations and pillars, and so we were discussing the first week. The topic was the four pillars of Dharma. The 4 pillars of Dharma and the Kali Yuga. And we read quite a bit, along 2 long chapters, giving a story about a symbolic story of the cow, Mother Earth appearing as a cow, and Dharma, or religion, or religiosity, or righteousness, or Dharma has no clean definition, of course, no single definition. Appearing as a bull, and the bull and the cow are being beaten mercilessly by a demon, and the demon's named Kali, not Kali, as the goddess Kali. Kali is the short A, short I, Kali. And so we hear this term Kali Yuga, right? This is Kali. That's the Kali of Kali Yuga. And in the story, the personification of Kali Yuga, the personification of adharma, of irreligion, is appeared, and it was beating this cow and this bull, and the bull has 3 legs of the bull were broken, and King, I think Parikshit is the one who saw him, and went to go punish this demon Kali, seeing that, and then the scene stops, and some dialogue, some interpretation and dialogue is presented, where the bull asks, what does this mean? Why are my three legs broken? What's the meaning of this? And King Parikshit contemplates a little bit and gets the meaning, the inner meaning. He says that your four legs are, actually remember what the four legs are?
Yes. Okay. Truth. Oh.
Let's see, what are they?
Purity, austerity, and mercy.
Very good, right. Tapaha, Saucham, Daya, and Satyam. Right, so tapaha means austerity or self-control. Tapaha. Saucham, actually I'll do the actual verse for the sake of being Tapa Saucham Daya Satyam Ittipara Krita Kritaha Adharmas Saistrayo Bhagnaha Smaya Sangha Madaistataha. Says in Sattva Yuga, in the golden age, your four legs were established as austerity, purity, Saucha means purity, Daya, mercy, and Satya, truthfulness or truth, right? And it says, but it appears that three of your legs are broken, and it describes the three legs that are broken. Let me see here, because it at present, O Dharma, you are standing on only one leg only, which is truth, Satya. And you are somehow or another hobbling along. But Kali, the personification of Adharma, is trying to destroy this leg by dishonesty. And it mentions, actually, in the previous verse, it appears that your legs are, in Satya Yuga, your four legs are established as austerity, purity, mercy, and truthfulness. But it appears that three of your legs are broken by Adharma in the form of, and then the terms where we use, Smaya means pride. Right, sangha means attachment. It also means company. So really means attachment to bad company. Right, it has both meanings there. Right, sangha. Madai means we described it as what was the term we used?
Blinding passion.
Blinding passion. So it's not just we should all be passionate about many things. It's not that. It means like excited desire that can't be stopped, that blinds you, and we do foolish things often by awakened desire that's beyond our control, right? Blinding passion. And then the fourth, satya, is destroyed. What the term is? Anritena. Anritena means by falsehood or by deceit, right? So we spent quite a bit of time discussing these things. And in the story, many people weren't here, that's why I'm giving a brief background. In the story, King Parikshit goes to immediately kill the demon Kali. It would be very nice if he had killed the demon Kali, right?
Yeah.
But he was a good king, and good kings have rules, right? And the demon Kali surrendered, dropped his weapon, stopped beating the cow and the bull, dropped his weapon, and say, I surrender to you. All right, and so in the proper rules of the Kshatriya code, you cannot attack or kill somebody who is without weapon and somebody who surrenders. Right, that's in the news right now, as of earlier today, or last night. It's also international law at present, right? Important. And so he says, okay, leave this place, leave my kingdom. Right? It says, but practically speaking, in the story, or maybe even literally, the whole world is his kingdom. The whole world is Bharat at that time. Right? So he says, you're not telling me where to go. You send me someplace. I'll go wherever you send me. Just don't kill me. And so he sends them where there's, I had that verse too. These are the important verses we spent time on. Thus Parikshit gave Kali permission to reside where there are four kinds of adharma. Right? One is dutam, where there's gambling. These are symbolic representations. So gambling is a good representation of dishonesty. Right? It's trying to earn what you don't get, all that type of thing. Right? So panam means drinking. Right? This means intoxication. Right? And striyaha means womanizing. It means literally means womanizing, right? Striyaha, but it means promiscuity, right? And then suna means a slaughterhouse, means where there's animal slaughter. Because these four cover, it says, the qualities. The four pillars of dharma are also considered the four qualities of the soul, Of course, the soul has perhaps infinite qualities, or maybe something the soul has no qualities. There's different views that they're gunaless, what is it, colorless, formless, and gunaless. But if there's qualities of the soul, right, it shares the qualities of God, right, as part and parcel of God, right, and so those qualities are austerity, self-control, cleanliness, purity, and mercy, compassion, and honesty, right? And so these four things are symbolic of what covers the natural quality of the soul, right? Gambling and dishonesty covers the quality of lying qualities to cover the quality of honesty, or intoxication covers self-control, tapasya, tapa, austerity. Striyaha, promiscuity, covers purity, and animal slaughter covers mercy or daya, compassion. So that's what we spent quite a bit of time on those verses. And then last week we canceled because of sickness in the temple, but last week we changed metaphors, right, from pillars to foundations. We talked about the foundations of a spiritual life. And of course, our topic is devotion, so we want to get to the fun stuff of bhakti, of devotion, right? But the Bhagavatam, by giving the story, the Bhagavatam is only about devotion, and the highest type of devotion probably ever conceptualized, that of Radha and Krishna and the gopis and things like that, are given later in the text. But the text starts with, this is a dark age. In this dark age, devotion and chanting God's name is the cleanest, quickest, and safest path. That's Ramakrishna exactly said. He says, Naradiya Bhakti is the path of Kali Yuga. The path of Bhakti is taught by Narada, which is the teachings of the Bhagavatam. One of the major characters. He gives his teachings in the Bhagavatam. But it's Kali Yuga, right? It's the safest and quickest and surest path is through devotion and chanting God's name. But the demon Kali will ruin everything. It will ruin even our bhakti. It will ruin our chanting. It will ruin our spiritual practices, right? So we have to be very careful. And so the warning, the punchline in that first week was therefore those who are serious about spiritual life. He gives a bunch of other leaders, gurus, spiritual people, but especially those who are serious about their spiritual life. I imagine we're all serious about our spiritual life. Should avoid these things very carefully. Right, we should be very careful about these because they will gnaw at they pollute the very principles of bhakti and the very thing. You can see when you what are those four things? We can summarize those things as lying, right? Money, so money, sex, violence, cheating, right? Cruelty. Put those things in religion, everything gets spoiled, right? In outside religion, you almost expect it. But it's always disappointing when these things are found out in our normal relationships, in our government dealings, in our businesses like this, But when it happens so close to our spiritual core, it's especially painful, right? So we should be very careful about the thing. So last week we switched to the idea of foundation, the importance of having a strong foundation, and so the foundations are some spiritual. We have the yamas and niyamas in yoga, right? These are spiritual foundations. Every tradition has some, and actually, we went through the Bhagavad Gita and the three types of austerity, austerity of body, mind, body, speech, and mind, right? And the list, this is going to be different versions of the same list, right? Because these are the things to watch out for, right? So there may be some differences. Gita says one thing, the Yoga Sutra says something else. The Devi Bhagavatam has a list of 10 yamas and 10 niyamas rather than 5 yamas. Sometimes a yama listed in one is a niyama listed in another text. But basically, it shouldn't shock us to see the same type of thing like honesty, self-control, purity, non-attachment as some sort of principle for spiritual life, right? And to see something the opposite of that should be surprising and shocking, right? I mean, it shocks me when things are openly said the opposite of that.
That was a great recap.
Okay.
That's perfect.
Moving forward then. Thank you for keeping me going.
Was it this one where Kali responds that, well, this isn't Kali Yuga yet.
Yeah, so that's a good, yeah.
Those things exist yet.
Yeah, so in the story, when he sold, I send you these 4 places, you send me nowhere. Right. Of course, these things, we always joke he sent them to, where is it? Las Vegas. You know? Also, Las Vegas is a symbol of these 4 things, you know. And now, you know, there's a big PR thing, Las Vegas, it's family friendly, right? All this type of stuff. And I guess that's good. There's something for everybody there, right? Like, but that's also kind of sad that it's been so normal that immorality or indiscipline and intoxication and prostitution and whatever the things are like that are so normalized that it's bring your family, bring your kids along. There's something it's kind of sad also. Maybe it's softening it. Maybe it's good. I don't know if it's good. I mean, I'm very limited. We've driven through Las Vegas with wide eyes and Mala's going like, oh my God, driving. That was our experience. It was something to see in full display, full power display. So we started talking about some of those, turning the 4 legs of religion or the 4 qualities of the soul into understanding them as aspects of discipline, right? And so we talked about that tapasya, discipline itself, the importance of discipline itself. And one important thing, last night I was reading about tapasya and some shastra, and one of the points brought out is actually tapasya is not just regular discipline. It means discipline for spiritual realization. Of course, you're saying the demons are also doing tapasya in the stories. They stand on their legs, on the tippy. Hiranyakashipu stood on his feet for 10,000 years until fire came out of the top of his head. Brahma showed up and gave him a boon. What's his boon? His boon is not God realization or pure bhakti or something like this, or even like a nice job or something. They have kids get into a good school, whatever. Even something normally auspicious, right? It was like, may I never be able to die, so I can take over the 3 worlds. Right, that's austerity. He did tapasya, but it's demonic tapasya. That's not what's meant by tapasya. So tapasya is meant a discipline for spiritual disciplines. Austerity, sometimes difficulties. Austerity means some difficulty, in order to make some spiritual goal. Right. So that's not the same as like there's many people and we're all disciplined in different things in order to accomplish different goals. But sometimes discipline for a spiritual goal is. Like you can see, like it's maybe hard to wake up early to do your japa, but if you know you have a doctor's appointment, you wake up at 4, or if you know you have to wake up a couple hours early to get to the airport, you wake up at 3:30, no problem, without the alarm, right? But the rest of the time, when it's the best time for meditation, it's not so easy, right? So tapasya is doing some difficulty for a spiritual goal, right? And then we spend a lot of time on saucha. Non-saucha, on satya, on truthfulness, which is so in the story, the bull is on 3 legs. 3 legs are broken, and the only leg he's standing on is truthfulness, honesty. He said that one is also being beaten by dishonesty, by deceit, right? And we talk about in Kali Yuga, there's still an assumption of honesty. That's why when somebody lies to us or somebody's deceitful to us, it's so shocking. Because we're assuming. Maybe we shouldn't, but I think we should assume honesty. It's a sad thing if we don't assume honesty, right? But sometimes it's very shocking. So Sri Ramakrishna said that satya is a tapasya of Kali Yuga. It's the austerity of this age, right? So and we told some stories of how that he offered hibiscus flowers to the Divine Mother, saying, "Here is thy purity, here is thy impurity. Take them both, Mother. But grant me pure love. Here is thy, what other ones he gave? All these different dualities. Here is thy, even dharma and adharma. Take them both, right? But he couldn't say here is thy truth and here is thy untruth, right? He could not give up truth, right? And also to give up truth, then even what's his stand? What can he stand on? Even the idea that he wants pure devotion, right? His truth has to be there. But we gave a few examples of that. But I was thinking, Sri Ramakrishna was pretty we're going to linger here a little bit more, a few more stories or a few more examples, because he was even he himself, like, it's become a little manic, right? A little bit excessive, right? Right? Because like if he said he was going to do something, like he said, I mean, something like he said, I'll go to use the toilet, right? And then he didn't need to. He'd be there for an hour until he used the toilet because he said he was going to use, or I'm going to drink something, or whatever he said he was going to do, he had to do, right? To a point where it's like it's almost unnatural, right? But his adherence to truth is so perfect, right? There's one scene. There was a very rich man named Jadu Malik. He was actually you can say he was the Bill Gates of Calcutta, but Bill Gates had nothing on him. These are the type of wealth people had at that time, right? But he had a garden house just next to Dakshineshwar, right? Actually, in that garden house is where Sri Ramakrishna saw the famous painting of Jesus and Mary that had elicited one of his major visionary experiences, right? You can still go to that room. They have a copy, not the original painting, unfortunately, but the paint there, still the room we recently were. Did you go to this time? No, I went this time. But anyway, so one time he told Jadu Malik, "Oh, I'll visit your house," right? And so it may have been 2 a.m. Sri Ramakrishna wakes up and says, "I didn't visit his house," right? So he goes and to the back door, and there's like back gates from the Dakshineshwar temple. Normally you have to go all the way around, but there's a back gate. He go in, he opened the door, he stepped his foot into the room, and then closed the door and went back to his room, right? Because he said he was going to do it. It's very important. Keeping your word is very important, right? Now there is also one. What's the other one that I'm remembering? Oh, about Swami Brahmananda, rock call. One time from, see if I get more or less, I'll get the story right. The story-ish. Details are kind of there. Where Rakal came, who became Swami Brahmananda, and he says, "I'm having a hard time seeing your face. It seems cloudy. I can't see your face clearly." Sri Ramakrishna said to Rakal, right? And he says, "Did you do anything like wrong today? You commit some like sin or something? What was some impurity that make you not be able to see your face?" He goes, "No, sir. I met some friends and I came straight here. Right? Didn't do anything. Are you sure?" Then he said, "Did you tell any lie? Because that would do it." Sri Ramakrishna was very sensitive to these things. He says, "No, sir, I didn't tell a lie." But still, there must be some reason I can't see. Even now, I can't see your face as I'm talking to you. I can't see your face clearly. Think about it. And so Rakal thought, and he said, "Well, in joking with my friends, I made in joking sometimes you make something that's not true. So that's it. You should not lie even in joking." Right, so we kind of a joke here. That's not a lie, right? We sometimes when somebody's joking like this and we say something that's not true in joke, right? So I don't know if you're lying or joking, but you're not telling the truth. Maybe we don't consider a joking a lie, right? But Sri Ramakrishna considered it. He was that strict on it, right?
Notorious for April Fool's jokes.
Oh yes, on April 1st, you're in yeah. She's genius at April Fools.
But every single one of them don't involve a lie. She does it in such a way where she's not lying.
Yeah, she creates very clever.
Very clever.
Yeah. And so last time we talked about some tech, why we tell like white lies and what we do, to catch ourselves. We mentioned Swami Shivananda's book on how to develop virtues and eradicate vices. That's a nice sounding book, right? It's not a fun read, right? But it's a necessary book, right? It tells you that it's like for April, take a vice you want to overcome. And then he gives techniques on how to do it. And then he'd have people do a diary, how many times you lied that week, why did you lie, when you lied, and send it to him for correction. Can you imagine sending your guru?
In the back of the book, you can take it out.
Yeah.
I did it for a while.
Yeah.
Your daily diary of and you have to check mark every little thing you did. Did you get angry? Did you get angry?
Yeah.
Did you do japa? How many minutes did you meditate?
Yeah.
It's like when you stop and look at the whole, and you're like,
It's very revealing. right? We do these things without ever thinking about why we're doing it. And so through great personal embarrassment, I tried to do this when I was in community college, and it was many years ago, right? And where I was working at a record store. It's just like, it's amazing. Like, for no reason, there's little things, right? They're not even nothing serious, but then you think, why are you saying something that's not exactly true, right? And then themes come out, and it's like often it's like covering your view, how people think of you. That's often the case, right? Sometimes you just try not to get in trouble, or there's some practical things, but it's interesting, and there's the yogis have thought about this, and they've connected pride and ego to lying. We'll talk about that maybe a little later. But it's like and also Sri Ramakrishna also, like, he would say, don't say I'll be there at 11, right? Say I'll try to be there at 11. This way what if you're not there at 11? Then you've lied, right? It's like, so even that being careful, right, to word in such a way, right? There's of course, during Sri Ramakrishna's life, there was an important religious movement called the Brahma Samaj that maybe you heard about, and they also were big in. They were much more moralistic than Sri Ramakrishna was. He was not moralistic, right? Right. The Brahma Samaj was very kind of Christian moralistic kind of type of thing, but lying was a big one that they'd push. And so one time there was a story. A young person asked somebody on the street who was a Brahma Samaj member, like, do you know where the theater is? Right, the movie theater, or I guess it probably wasn't movies back then, but it was a theater. And theaters have a bad reputation. Nothing good happens at theaters. No good person goes to the theater, right? And so he would say no. He didn't want the boy to ruin his character by going to a talkie or something like that. But then he ran back and found that boy and says, no, I'm sorry, I didn't tell the truth. I do know where it is, but I won't tell you. Right? Because say I don't know is a lie, right? So it's like, even there we have to be very careful. And so part of, if you think about what like, of course, we have to train ourselves to tell the truth and not lie, right? But turn that into, of course, honesty is a major value and virtue for sure, right? But we can turn that into like a more practical virtue that all of us hits. I think deeper is integrity, right? Trustworthiness is one thing, but integrity. If you're,
It's the case that Ramakrishna said, if you could assiduously tell the truth for 7 years, then anything you say.
Yeah. So there's a couple things there. One, there is a statement like that. This is also from the in Yoga Sutra. It also mentions the siddhi. Each of the yamas, niyamas, has a siddhi attached. If one is perfect in truthfulness, what one says becomes true. One becomes, it's called vach or vak siddhi.
So I take
Right.
that to mean that telling the truth is a very high standard.
Yeah. So it's two things. One thing is that if you only tell the truth for 6 years, 12 years, whatever the number is, right, then you're so habituated that you can only say what's true, right? And I've seen people who are so habituated to truth that even if they're talking about something they don't understand or don't know, and they say something wrong, they realize, no, that can't be right, because like they can't even by accident say something that's not true. But then there's a belief that there's a yogic siddhi, a yogic power that comes, that literally your words become true. There's power in your word. You see, if you're so careful about your words, naturally there'll be it's a type of tapasya. It's a type of austerity, and austerity has a siddhi. It has a benefit. Each one of these has a siddhi. We don't always talk about them. In the Yoga Sutra it does. So speaking the truth, one gets vak siddhi, one's words become true.
Ramakrishna's brother Rameshwar, who got upset with him, and cursed Ramakrishna.
Yeah.
Blood would come from your mouth.
Yeah.
And blood came from Ramakrishna's mouth. He had a problem where
It actually saved his life.
because
Right.
it turned out a yogi had been staying at Ramakrishna and said, this is a yogic reaction. But in a certain sense,
Yeah.
it had to fulfill.
Yeah, Thakur said because his brother had said it, and his brother was a truthful person, even if it was said in anger, I said, be careful. Like, we're very careful, because most people have no power in their speech, right? You can say even liars can insult you and hurt you, right? There's power in speech that way. being lied to is a power, a power to hurt somebody or an insulting or something like that. But most people don't have, space. Like if somebody can, if you believe you can go to somebody and they say, pronounce a blessing, right? It says, may you be happy, or may like this, right? Or may God bless you. They can bless you. It means that they have power in their speech. Their speech can do something, right? Which means they could probably curse you, right? And therefore, and you see in many of these stories in the Bhagavatam like that, rishis who have a lot of power, and part of their power they control their mind, their speech, and their body, right? But if they lose control of their mind, they say something out of anger, and then they curse somebody, and then the whole Bhagavatam is stories like this, caused by the whole Bhagavatam is told because of a sage's young son curses Parikshit to die in 7 days, and the whole Bhagavatam happens like that, right? So, controlled speech has a lot of power for sure, right? But I think integrity is a big thing, right? And that comes, how you build integrity is by having what you say and what you mean and what you do match continuously. That you can build it, and people know that, and people trust you because of that, right? So Swami Vivekananda, a quote from Swami Vivekananda, a person possessing honesty, truthfulness, and integrity can stand strong even against the entire world. Right? So much power is there. And the attack of integrity, of honesty, in the opening verse is anritena, which is dishonesty or deceit. You see, I was really thinking, because both of these, these are in a list of English translations in a Sanskrit English dictionary of anritena, of dishonesty or deceit. There's a flavor difference.
Oh, yeah.
This dishonesty is one thing. Deceit is like something long-term premeditated. It seems to be, and that's really what destroys this quality of honesty. So we have to be very careful, right? Not to be deceitful, not to be dishonest.
Yeah, remembering Guruji Ramananda talking about that honesty will always be more powerful than dishonesty, because he did like a little boy sits on the shoulders of his father and goes walking. So the lie will always sit on the shoulders of truth. The truth is established. In order for there to be a lie, it has to be in relation to the truth. And so the truth is always stronger.
Yeah. And so Swami Omananda is describing a few weeks ago, we also, connected to that same conversation, where he challenged us to say, okay, I'm giving you permission to lie right now, right? So usually you're not allowed to lie, but you can say something that's not, think of something outlandishly not true and make that statement, right? But it has to be 100% untrue, right? Not established truth, right? So I made some statement like, it could have been like Govindananda is not wearing a hat, or something like when he was in fact wearing a hat, right? But in order to make that statement, you have to think of the truth. To lie, you have to think of the truth, right? So the truth, along those lines, without, everything's built upon truth, right? So anyways, it's important. So we talked about tapasya in general, and we talked about a little bit more on honesty, right? Then saucha. Saucha is cleanliness or purity. Externally means cleanliness. Internally means purity, right? And Swami Omananda always points out, our Guruji, Swami Omananda, he says, when you talk about this, of course, we always say, okay, there's external cleanliness and internal purity. So there's a yogi, because they're also hatha yogi. He's a great hatha yogi. There's also internal cleanliness. Right? Before you get to purity, let's get that, because the yogis have internal techniques of the kshatriyas, and there's noli and what is it when you jalneti and sutneti and those type of stuff. These are ways of not only cleaning the outside of the body, you can clean the inside of the body. So there's internal and external cleanliness, and then there's internal, or maybe even external purity. Purity is a different quality. And in the story, the opposite of purity, symbolic opposite of purity is extreme promiscuity. We have to be careful, right? Excuse me. So, if the example given for saucha is womanizing or promiscuity, right? So it means I was just listening to the other day to a nice Buddhist. It was not a Buddhist monk; it was a lay person, but making a very nice statement on the five. What are the five precepts? You know the five precepts. This is in Buddhism. There's three levels of commitment in generally. The first that all Buddhists take is the five precepts. Then there's those who take a more serious, almost monastic type of orientation. There's 10 precepts, and that often they use as they recite. They take their vow. They burn. They use lit incense, and you'll see in the shaved head nuns and monks, they'll have 10 spots where they literally brand those precepts. And then there's, for the fully ordained monk or nun, there's, 360 something Vinaya codes or something like that, right? How you wear the robe and how you beg, there's a lot of different rules like that. Whether you can carry an umbrella or not, more elaborate. But the five precepts are meant for everybody. And I'm thinking this is a very nice telling, something like yamas and niyamas, something like that. And I think if I get I don't.
The five preliminary precepts
Yeah.
that were given to me
Yeah.
when I was looking into
Yep.
Buddhism
Yep.
was no lying,
No lying,
no killing,
no stealing,
no sexing,
no. It says immoral sexuality.
inappropriate drinking or drugs.
Yeah. So you see, there you got it right there. You got the five right there. In five, you got the four, or it's a very nice list, right? And so it says sexual immorality is a term that usually they translate the term, And so I think that's a good, rather, because you can see it's like what does promiscuity mean, by the ancient world standards and the modern standards, all these things society is changing and adjusting. Our ideas of sexuality are changing, sexual identity, sexual desire is changing, right? But there's still something that the difference between sexual immorality and sexual morality, whatever the changing society adjustment is, right? There's still something that can be known, that can be seen. So that's what's meant as the opposite of saucha, right? And so and the term for that in the text is what was the term? Sangha, attachment or company, right? So we have to. I was thinking along these lines of like at the core of this is desire. Of course, awakened excited desire. It's very hard to fight, right? But it's very desire is a complicated thing, because I remember one of my spiritual mentors says you can't desire what you don't. You cannot not desire what you desire, right? You don't choose what you desire. Very often, you don't really choose what you desire. You simply desire. So he says, Krishna says in the Gita, it's sagunas interacting with sagunas. That's how everything's happening, right? We identify it and suffer. It doesn't mean we have no volition, but still he says, how do you want what you want? He used to challenge me. This is Swami Shantananda. How do you want what you want? Can you not want what you don't want? Can you want what you don't want? It's like he was just challenging, trying to understand the very nature of desire, right? Yeah, so these type of things, you dig at it and it changes. Yeah, for sure. Right. So one thing I think is useful. It was okay. Some views, the self has no desire, right? Desireless, formless, and that's also my Guruji used to say that identify as the Atman, which is sexless, desireless, formless. So that's one way. That's a technique we can do like that. But another thing is also desire is also natural. It's built into the body and to the hormones and so many systems in the body, right? But it's also natural, perhaps because of our previous births, right? If that view is correct, that we have tendencies or samskaras from previous births, from this life and maybe even from previous lives, right? To which, I mean, we're responsible for, but not really anymore. You can't put somebody in jail now for something they did 1,000 lives ago, right? Although the suffering, their tendency now may be something planted a long time ago, but there's no longer a clear moral chain of events, a volitional chain of events that we can blame somebody for. It's just a way of understanding the way the karmic chains work, right? Right. So desire is natural, right? But not all desire is healthy, right? Not all desire is beneficial. Not satisfying, or maybe a different way of saying, not satisfying every desire is not beneficial. That we can tell, right? And within the spectrum of desire, there's obviously needs to be limits, right? And what's healthy for one person is not the same for another person. What's healthy now is not for something later. Of course, all these things are a little bit tricky. But anyway, so years ago, I had my Gita. Where's my Gita? I had a Bhagavad Gita in front of me. Oh, here it is. Years ago, in Omkareshwara, on the bank of on an island shaped like an Om in the middle of the Narmada River, there was an old sadhu who had done parikram many times of Narmada. Parikram is when you walk. It's an auspicious austerity where you walk around the Narmada. Normally takes more than 3 years to do it. And those who've done it come back different. People who've stared too long at the sun or something happens to them, it's a tremendous thing. He was one such person. So I remember he gave me a verse. He told me, I'll give you the secret verse. And so we call it the Valentine's verse. So when's Valentine's Day?
2:14.
What is it?
2:14.
2:14. So Bhagavad Gita 2:14, that's how I remember it. Krishna's Valentine's Day verse about desire. Valentine's Day is a good day to meditate on desire. Let me find it here. Chapter 3. Two. 14. Matra sparshas tu kaunteya shitoshna shukka dukkadaha agama payino nityaha tam siti shasva bharataha. The contact of the senses with their objects create, O son of Kunti, feelings of hot and cold, pain and pleasure. Right? So all of our experience of the senses, right, our experience, the contact of the sense creates these things, right? They come and go and are impermanent. Right? Pleasure and pain, pleasure and painful experiences, including desires, come and go, right? Bear them patiently. Titikshasva. Bear them patiently, O Bharata, right? And another the wonderful female sannyasini named Radhikananda Saraswati. She said, all experiences and all desires have a timestamp. That's the thing, that they come and go, they don't last, right? Therefore, just tolerate. So if you're in the middle of an unpleasant experience, it will pass, guaranteed. No matter how bad the experience. I mean, maybe you've experienced this also, even in grieving when some loss of a family member. All of a sudden, you find yourself laughing with friends, and then you feel guilty that you're laughing, because even grief has a time limit, right? It will come back, of course. It doesn't go away like that, but it doesn't stay. Nothing stays forever, right? Any experience of the senses doesn't stay together, but also desire doesn't stay, right? And so Neem Kurli Baba had a famous statement, right? If you want a cup of tea, don't drink it, and the desire goes away. Right, it's like, I mean, maybe it'll come. Maybe tomorrow you want a cup of tea. I say that as I'm drinking my tea.
Maybe is that how he defines tapasya?
Maybe his description of the pasya. If you want a cup of tea, don't drink it. Right, because the point is that the excited that mindless passion. What was the term? Blind passion. When they're awakened like that, like if you don't act, it will come down. Right, if you wait, the Mataji says, Radhikananda says, just wait 5 minutes. Right? 5 minutes is all I ask for, right? After 5 minutes, you can do any nonsense thing you want, right? if you still want, but usually you don't want. That's amazing. We don't wait those 5 minutes or 10 minutes or something, or sometimes it's just a few seconds, right? Right. It's really amazing how simple. It's Valentine's Day verse. Everything has a time limit. It comes and goes. Just tolerate and they'll pass. Right. There's a big austerity. We make it so difficult. I have to fight. Oh my God! I'm a very lustful person. I really desire this. It's like I remember one time in my young days. Right, when you're a teenager, the body and mind and society are on fire, right? And I made a comment to one of my spiritual mentors. I was like, "Oh, lust is bothering me, anger is bothering me." And he says, "Are you angry now?" He says, "Well, not right now, Swamiji." He's like, "Are you lustful now?" Definitely not with you, Swamiji. It's like he says, then why are you identifying with a thing that's not part of you right now? You're saying I'm lustful, I'm angry, right? But right now you're not. So you're identifying with a thing that you're obviously not. It's something that comes and goes, right? So that's a very helpful technique, right? Don't identify with that which is passing. If it's that which is constant, you can identify with, right?
Beautiful in the Vinobaji's commentary on the Gita. Vinobaji was a disciple of Gandhi, and he said in his commentary he gave it while he was in prison, and he says about desire. But that was such an interesting take. He said, when we fulfill a desire, once it's fulfilled, we have a certain sense of peace, satisfaction. But he says that satisfaction, that contentment, is us being desireless, because the desire is fulfilled. It's not the fulfillment of the desire.
Yeah. It's a temporary not having desire.
Absence of desire.
Yeah.
In that moment, the desire is fulfilled, and so we don't have any desire.
Yeah.
That's what we feel when we feel that satisfaction. That was interesting.
Yeah, very good. And then Yogi, revered Swami Chaitananda makes this point a lot. I hope to be the stuff. He says yogis, they see desires coming from a distance. They see it as begin to vibrate. The vritti begin to come, and they can see it from a distance. It's like most desires, they're no big deal. If you want a cup of tea, unless tea is bad for you, or if caffeine's going to ruin you or something like that. That's another But small things, no big deal. So you can satisfy those. You judge it from a distance, right? And it's like, oh, this one can get out of hand, or this one's dangerous. Right? So stop. They stop it from developing, right? They're like this, So be able to see that from a distance. I have my notes simply. Seeds of Desire reading. So in a very good book called Return to the Source, some Swami I know wrote something on desire. Meditating on this. If you desire a cup of tea, don't drink it. With a commentary from a letter I wrote to somebody on this point by Nimkurli Baba. Let me find it here. Because desire has there's a spectrum, right? Because kama is the word for desire, the pure word for desire, right? But kama is also related to bhakti, because desire for God, right, and desire for anything else is still coming from the same energy of the soul. Desire for completion, desire for experience, desire for pleasure, right, or desire for ending of suffering, separation from God, like this. So on one side, in the spectrum, we can put bhakti and longing and love for God on one side, and the other spectrum we can put more crude forms of selfish lust and things like this, more cruder aspects of selfish lust, perhaps. So this is what we're writing. Devotion, bhakti, and lust, kama, are both kinds of desires. We can say that there are two extremes of the continuum. On one end, bhakti is a desire for union with the Absolute, and the other end, kama, is desire for selfish enjoyment. They both spring from the soul's fundamental hunger for spiritual completion. But while their source is one, their results are not the same. Bhakti, when fully realized, leads to the bliss of union, and kama, even when fulfilled, leads to loneliness and suffering. It's rarely fulfilled, but when it's fulfilled also. Our Guru, Swami Bhajanananda Saraswati, used to tell us, if you expect permanent and unlimited satisfaction from temporary and limited objects, you are bound to be frustrated. And frustrated we are. Maharishi Patanjali says that the seeds of desires lie hidden and buried within the mind. They spring into life when exposed to the proper stimulus, either by proximity to the object of temptation. Either by proximity to the object of desire, we call that temptation, when we're close to the object, right? Or by memory or imagination of the enjoyment of desire, by fantasy. This is what brings fantasy and temptation, right? But not all the desires in our minds are bad, just like not all seeds in the ground are bad. We can see a correlation between the stimulus and speed of desires and their spiritual danger and value. So speed is one thing. A tree takes years to mature, but brings blessings for generations. Similarly, the noble desires for righteousness, devotion, liberation, love, service, which are awakened by holy company, grow slowly over years of practice as we mature spiritually. The vegetables take a few weeks to grow and satisfy our practical needs for sustenance. Similarly, desires for food, safety, health, and companionship, which are awakened by the necessities of life in the body, grow quickly to keep us alive and thriving. But a weed springs up overnight and chokes a garden to death. Right? Similarly, lust and greed, which flare up at the slightest stimulation, seem to consume the mind at the speed of thought and can choke our spiritual progress. If a weed comes up, don't water it, and it will wither and die. If you want a cup of tea, don't drink it, and the desire will go away. Right? That's my version of it. If a weed comes up, don't water it, and it will die. If we water it, then it will grow and to maturity, choke out the healthy plant, and then go to seed, thus making it even more difficult to resist the next time. How quickly we can lose control of our mental garden. So this is sadhana. First, try to avoid temptation that awakens the seeds of negative desires in the mind. Bad company, bad sangha. This is not always possible, but we should try. Second, when the weed-like desire has awakened, don't act upon it. Withdraw your energy. If we wait a bit, breathe, chant Ma's name, it will pass and we will be stronger. This is austerity, tapasya. For every time we overcome a desire, we light a blazing fire within that can burn up the other latent seeds before they have the opportunity to sprout. This is the negative aspect of sadhana. The positive aspect is the repeated planting of the divine seeds of Mother's all-powerful holy mantra deeper and deeper into our hearts and minds in meditation, and the constant watering of it by japa and prayer. The secret is not just restraining the senses, but also focusing on the divine. Discipline and devotion must go together. The only reason we struggle to control the mind and overcome desire is out of love. We want to love purely, free from all selfishness. Desire seems like they are coming from deep in the soil, especially for the big ones like lust. This is because lust has its source in the soul. We must take it up to its root. This is a line from Jewish mysticism. We are bliss, ananda. We need ananda. We are seeking real pleasure, true satisfaction. We want union with the beloved. But just now, through the trick of biology and our samskaras, we find ourselves trapped in body consciousness. This pure urge is directed to what we can easily get, physical pleasure. The frustrating part is that even the greatest physical pleasure is temporary, debilitating and binding, and thus ultimately disappointing. So let us tolerate a little burning and aim at what we really want. Something from a letter to a devotee. So another test I use when deciding what to do, right? Not only what desire to satisfy, what relationship to engage in, what job to engage, work to begin, right? What, and also like, what to drink, smoke, and eat, whatever. We have to have some acid test, right? And so Swami Vivekananda, I have it tattooed, right? But tattoo on the body is one thing. Tattoo on the mind is another thing, right? You have to see the world through this principle. Swami Vivekananda, his slogan of the Ramakrishna mission, right? It's claimed in different websites that it's from the Vedas. I've never found the actual verse. It may be a summary, Swami Vivekananda summary. I've never found the verse directly. Atmano moksharatam jagat hitayacha. Right? Atmano moksharatam means for the liberation of your soul, for the freedom of your soul, your spiritual liberation, right? and jagat hitayacha, and for the good of others, for the good of the world. Right? So your test should be, and our sannyas guru, Swami Omananda, I've asked him, I would opportunity to teach at this university. Is it okay if I do it, or this opportunity to do this particular intellectual work? And so getting permission, because this is not the normal work of sannyasis, right? He says, well, ask yourself, is it good for your spiritual life, and it's good for the world at large? If it is, then you can do, no restriction, right? That should be the test. Is it good for your? So that's one of the things when you notice a desire coming from a long distance, you can ask yourself, if this is engaged in, is it good for my spiritual life? Right? The answer is no. Maybe it's not a good. Maybe it's not good for your spiritual life, or if it's yes, maybe it is good for your spiritual life. And if it's to somebody's benefit or the world's benefit, spiritual benefit of the world or the wealth of the world, that's or if it isn't, if this is not actually hurting people, then that should be a good acid test, I think. Right? I think there's two questions that could answer many things. So that's, of course, attachment or sangha. Then, of course, we also need, like I said, good company, right? We should not. Sri Ramakrishna, somebody asked him one time on kind of these points, like whose fault is it? Right? Is it the man's fault or the woman's fault when people leave from spiritual life, right? It's not that like that. But he did use this term, vijamaya and avidjamaya. Right? He says that the two powers of the absolute, in traditional, in Tantra, the Ishvara, God, has 5 qualities: creation, sustenance, and destruction. Right? Revealing and concealing. Right? So the concealing is called avidjamaya, and revealing is vijamaya, the power to reveal, right? And so Thakur said, so some men and some women have vijamaya, and some women have avidjamaya, right? And he gave a simple test: do they bring you closer to God? If a wife brings you closer to God, then she's vijamaya. If a husband brings you closer to God, he's vijamaya. If he takes you away from God, avidjamaya. Right? It's a simple, of course, not that easy in the middle of it to know, but Thakur gave these. There is not, both are powers of God, right? One is one keeps the world going as it's supposed to go, and a few of us want something different, right? And so because of that, we also need good company, right? We need good relationships, whatever those relationships. We need good, healthy relationships, but we also need not just good relationships that aren't harmful, that are helpful for our material and emotional life in this world, but also spiritual relationships. And we'll spend a lot of time on the importance of holy company and devotee company, and how to interact with devotees in holy company as the series goes out as part of my things, right? But there's Swami Chaitananda quotes a verse. Maybe it's from Shankar. I'm not sure what the verse is from. But I know I don't know the verse, but I know the translation. I can hear his translation. It says, if there's no holy company, there'll be no talk of God. And that's a fact, right? So Krishnadas says, bhakti is a disease. You catch it from somebody who has it, right? That's the way it works, right? And without holy company, you won't talk of God. We're having this talk, an hour, almost exactly an hour and 2 minutes or something so far. Because of holy company, devotees have gathered together, and we're devotees gathered together. They talk about who they love, right? Talk about spiritual life. So if there's no holy company, there's no talk of God, and if there's no talk of God, our illusion will not end, right? And if the illusion will not end, then there's no spiritual realization or attainment, right? It all comes from good company, so we should choose our company very carefully, right? Of course, we can't always choose our company, but you can have different relationships with different people, right? Not everybody has to be so close, right? Some people you should have no relationship with, right? Some people are dangerous for your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual life. But most people, but you have to we need to find devotees to be in friendship with, and there's different types of devotees. There are some that are like our equals, spiritual equals, friends, right? And so the scripture says those we should become very friendly with and reveal our mind and like this. Like then there's some that are below us or beginners or wherever we are. There's some people, those you help and you give advice. Right? And then there's some devotees who are above us, right? The saints and things like this, and those we serve properly, we through service. Right? All three actually were serving, but how the relationship with it. So Sri Ramakrishna said actually without holy company, and the term for holy company is sadhu sangha, satsang and sadhu sangha. And sadhu, of course, sadhu means monk, so sadhu sangha means company of monks, but also devotees are also sadhu sangha, right? Sadhu actually just means like excellent. That's what I think that word it means, excellent company. And unfortunately, not all monks are excellent company. Some of them are horrible company. Right? I avoid certain monks like anything, you know.
I asked some Swamis what was the most important thing in spiritual life. Some of them said, holy company.
Holy company.
Very clear on that.
Holy company, holy company, holy company, yeah. Right. So in M's first real conversation was talk with Sri Ramakrishna. He also asked, what's the way? And so he gives, chant God's name and glories all the time, discriminate between, discern between the temporary and the eternal, time to time go into solitude to pray to God. He gives different things like this. But he said, and you need holy company. Right? And he used the word sadhu sangha. And I believe is it there where he gives a definition of a sadhu or somewhere else later? Because somebody asked, like, what is a sadhu? Who should, of course, the term, I have an early translation, your translation may have changed a little bit. This is an early translation, right? Let me find it here. So who should we look for? And it's not easy, such people are not always easy to find, even in monasteries. We're also looking for them, right? Right. He alone is a sadhu whose mind, this is Sri Ramakrishna's words, whose mind, life, and innermost self have become totally lost in God. He alone is a sadhu who is a renouncer of kamini kanchan, lust and greed. He is a sadhu who does not look at a woman, this is of course from the male perspective, with worldly eyes and always keep his distance from them. If he comes near a woman, then he sees her as mother and he worships her. A sadhu always thinks of God and talks of nothing else but God. And knowing that God's present in all beings, he serves them. These are more or less the signs of a sadhu. There's other signs. The Chaitanya Charitamrita gives a list of 64 qualities of a devotee. Sadhu gunas of a sadhu. The first one is merciful, right? The second one is honest. So the same list is it starts the same type of list, right? So if we think of these things, like austerity, tapasya, we think of purity, we think of honesty, we think of, what's the other one? Compassion, right? I think I may have skipped compassion, but it's okay, we'll cover it up in our summary. We could think, we know they're opposites. Not always, it's like the opposite of love is hate, right? You can say, maybe. Or maybe hate's a separate thing. Maybe some people say the opposite of love is indifference. Yeah. Right? Could be. I think it just that's the absence of love, not the opposite of love. I still think that hate is. These are just where we put our pins in the semantic scale, right? But like the opposite of love is hate, or the opposite of purity is impurity. That's simple, right? Honesty is lying, right? That's a simple thing. So, but there's an idea in the more theistic traditions that in Hindu theistic traditions that the material world is not the only. There's higher realms. There's heaven worlds. The spiritual realm, like Vaikuntha or the heaven realm of Vishnu, or Golok, the heaven realm of Krishna, or Kailash, the heaven realm of Shiva, or Devi Puram, the heaven realm of Devi, right? That idea that there's the spiritual realm where God and everything is perfect and it's not Kali Yuga in the spiritual world, right? Right. One Swami just recently I saw. I was clicking around my favorite Swamis. I needed some inspiration, and he said, actually, there's no monks in the spiritual world. right? Because here there's nothing to enjoy, so we have to renounce like that. But there's nothing to renounce. Everything is very nice. Everything is divine there. Nothing to renounce in the spiritual world. So in that language, so then rather it's one way of seeing the world, and I think we can contemplate this a little bit. Is that this is a reflection of the spiritual world? They use that language, right? They use the perverted reflection. Of course, the word perverted is a trigger word now. It's not meant to be a judgment. Meaning distorted. Yeah, perverted. Yeah, that's in that sense, a distorted reflection. And if you see a tree, and when many years ago, I was contemplating this idea, right? And I was at the Back Bay in Costa Mesa, in Newport Beach, and watching, a tree reflected on the water. So you see the tree, it's upside down, right? That means it's a perverted. It's upside. It's like the tree. It's not the opposite of a tree. But it's not the tree. It looks like the tree, but it's not exact. It's a reflection, right? Right. And so there's a way of thinking of these things, and I think sometimes maybe a little helpful, right? Like the opposite of tapas, of discipline, is being indisciplined, right? Or I guess like this, loss of control, like this, right? But what's the reflection of that? The reflection could be, like I defined earlier when we started, the idea of that tapasya means austerity, difficulty taken for spiritual realization, right? Just being really well controlled in the material world, being really disciplined, right, and organized for material purposes, right? Self-denial and strict discipline for material gain is perhaps a way of thinking of it as a reflection of it. I also think there's also traditions. You don't need any type of spiritual discipline for spiritual realization. There's this pathless path type stuff that people do, right? And anyways, we're not criticizing any. I can't say other spiritual paths. On any non-path, right? Where you don't need because it's like, but to do any spiritual discipline means you're affirming duality, and this that there's all kinds of stuff. I mean, there's different approaches, and some great saints have mentioned these type of stuff. But I sometimes think that's also kind of a perverted reflection of the principle of discipline. It's not indiscipline, but discipline itself is mistaken. That idea, perhaps. Right, saucham, cleanliness. So the idea is like the opposite of love is hate. What's the perverted reflection of love? Lust, right? That's one that easy to understand, right? It's not the opposite, but it's not the same also, right? So saucham. So the opposite is cleanliness is impurity, dirtiness, right? Or in sexuality is promiscuity, but what its reflection? What its reflection could be, like high culture, aristocratic taste, where we have very proper, so disciplined, right? Like I saw a funny play at the Hare Krishna temple last week for Gaur Punim, right? And Jagai and Madai were saying, we're very disciplined Brahmins, right? We wash our hands after murdering somebody, right? It's like you can see people, the most horrible things, the most crude things that are happening, but they're done in a very sophisticated way. Right, with using the proper fork as you eat your beef, right? This type of stuff, that type of thing, So I think maybe that could be, it's discipline, but it's not indiscipline, but it's almost like demonic discipline. It's a shadow of discipline, right? Daya, we didn't really talk about compassion, right? So actually, Sri Ramakrishna describes the opposite of compassion, not the opposite of compassion. Opposite of compassion is cruelty, perhaps, right? Right, cruelty. Opposite of mercy is cruelty, right? But he says the opposite of daya, not the opposite, reflection of daya is maya. And here maya means, he gives a very interesting definition. Of course, we use the word maya in different ways, right? Thakur is using it in a very specific way. Swamiji did the translation here. Let me see. Maybe I'll have to go back to where it is.
But also there's an interesting idea.
Yep. Yeah, fool's gold. Yeah, it looks real. It's not unreal, but it's not real gold. It's real, but not real gold. Yeah. Right. So this is from the Katamrita, Volume 1, Book 10, Chapter 7. Swami Bhajananda's translation. My things, people say. Loving all those things only is called Maya, or attachment, right? Loving everyone is called Daya, compassion, right? I only love the people of the Brahma Samaj. I only love those in my family. That is called Maya. Loving only the people of your own country, that is called Maya. Loving the people of all countries, the people of all religions, this comes from Daya, from devotion. Human beings are bound by Maya and are taken away from Bhagavan. Through Daya, they find God. Right? Sukadev, Narada, they kept Daya. Right, so that's the opposite. It's very easy. We have to judge. What is our? Are we being compassionate? Is it just for our community, our group, our family? Of course, we have to give. Our responsibility, our immediate responsibility, obviously, is if you're a parent, your immediate responsibility is for your children. If you're a governor, your immediate responsibility is for your state. Right. If you're a temple manager, your responsibility is for the temple. That's a way of responsibility, but there's still an easy test between Daya and Maya, right? Let me finish here. Let me grab ahead. Actually, we want to end within 5 minutes. And Satya, what's the opposite? Opposite of Satya is untruth. Its reflection, its perverted reflection, is given as pride. So interesting that, and you can see people why do people are lying or being deceitful? They think they're fine. They think they deserve it. They think it's okay, right? Sometimes they're protecting their self-image. That's one thing. But sometimes it's like we know everything. There's a hit to it. I find there's a hit to this idea. So this a little bit, underlining again for the third week these disciplines, right? Because I think we're not trying to encourage being prudish or judgmental or self-loathing or being uptight. None of these are spiritual qualities, right? But we do need. These are foundational principles. We need to be careful. And we said if you don't build a foundation, if you build a building without a foundation, you're building an accident, right? There's going to be a problem, right? We need to be careful if we consider our spiritual life to be important, right? That's the thing, right? This is Kali Yuga, if we believe. I mean, it seems like Kali Yuga to me, right? And Tapa, Saucham, Daya, and Satyam are in fact being undermined and destroyed and polluted and by pride, attachment, blinding passion, deceit, right? So we have to be very careful. And we have to be careful because this is the most precious thing, right? I hope it's the most precious thing, right? If spiritual life is the most precious thing, you're very blessed indeed. There's that famous line in the verse 3 of the Vivekachudamani of Shankaracharya. I have it in my notes, but I'm gonna lose my 2 minutes looking it up. So I'll just give the translation. Where he says that 3 things are very rare and come only by the grace of God, right? And he says that a human body, right? And believe it or not, if you read Shankaracharya's commentary on the Upanishads, you realize how difficult it is to get a human body. Right, it's maybe thousands of years to get a human body, right? And you can see in this room, there's a bunch of, how many of us? 20 of us or something? There is billions of bodies. Only 20 have human bodies, right? So there is a uniqueness to the human species, right? And Sri Ramakrishna said, only in the human body can we aspire for liberation, right? So that's first point. Great. If you have this, blessed you are by the grace of God and your own good karma from previous life, punya. Second is a desire for liberation, desire for spiritual, desire for God. Shankaracharya describes his desire for liberation because he's using Vedantic language. Mumukshata, right? Amukshatam. And so that's where, out of all human beings, really, very. Krishna says in the Gita, 1 in every 1,000, 1 in 1,000 has interest in me. right? Of course, most people are religious if you take the numbers, right? But Krishna is saying of religious people, one in 1,000 are really interested in me. There's other motivations, and these are legitimate motivations for religious practice and belief and belonging, right? But spiritual hunger is rare. And then Krishna says, and those who realize me is only one in 1,000. It means 1 in a million, right? It's a rare thing. And then the human body, desire for liberation, and Mahapurusha, and accompany the protective guidance and company of a great soul, Mahapurusha, holy company. It means company of saints and gurus, if we have that, of course, or great souls. We can through our community. But so if you have these three, it's a very rare thing, and it may not come. It didn't come easy, right? And it may not come easy again if we don't take advantage of it. So we're giving a lot of attention to these things because it's important. We want everybody's. If we have these things, we have to protect them like anything, because all three can end one mistake and you no longer have a human body, right? Easy. We don't know when a friend of mine says we don't know if our next breath or our next birth will come next, right? Right now, I mean, we wish you all safe journey home, right, and long healthy lives, but there's no guarantee, right? I don't know what happens. One thought. Well, at one point, God is our first thought, right, and then at some point, God becomes our second thought, and then that's a very sad moment. We've seen people so devoted, and then what happens? I don't know what happens. Something happens. Maybe a mistake somewhere deep in, right? Or we have holy company. That's not guaranteed, right? That can change in a second too, by some mistake, or by somebody dies, right? Or we get moved. Our office gets moved, right? So many things happen, right? So if you have these things, you have to protect them like anything, right? So Sri Ramakrishna said we should want God, we should long for God. And then somebody said, what if you don't have longing? Oh, then pray for longing. We should at least want to want God. And I think you can see most of us, if we can't really get at the core of really wanting God, I think all of us want to want God. That's also a type of devotion, If we lose that, be very careful. So hopefully next week we can more positive aspects of spiritual practice and the path of bhakti. So thank you for your kind attention and your tolerance. But this is important. No foundation, then accident. So I want everybody to build their spiritual life and live their spiritual life safely, step by step. Any comments or questions? We have a time. I have 3 minutes. Yes, tell me.
What do you think is the worst quality or worst vice? What do you think is the worst vice or worst bad thing a person does?
Yeah, I don't know if we can make it like, this is the big thing, because everybody is at a different stage, Sri Ramakrishna would hold honesty is really important, right? But if you're cruel or you're uncaring, I mean, all these things could be. We all have whatever. It's like I remember when we were in our high school psychology class when you're doing like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? I remember our teacher. We had the same teacher, different year. He says, so which one's the most important? And of course, self-actualization, the one at the top of the pyramid, right? Because no, the unfulfilled one, right? The one we're at, survival is more important than self-actualization if you're hungry. So Swamiji said that, to teach religion to a hungry man is a sin, right? Right. So I think that's also true amongst our faults, right? Our struggles and faults are the ones that have come up in front of you at the time, right? It's not one thing, for some people it's anger, other people it's cruelty, it's lust, other people it's selfishness, other people it's dishonesty, whatever it is, we have to work on what comes up, and whatever you can see, like we had a problem with the foundation of my kutir over here, and they started again. We didn't know what was wrong. Something was wrong with it, and we dug around and we found out. So if we dig a little self-introspection, digging in the soil, and find out, like, oh, this is potentially a little dangerous, we need to work on it. And great expense and difficulty, the foundation was repaired, right? But it was messy. So sometimes we have to dig a little bit and see where our problems lie. Perhaps. Anything else? Okay, good. So we shall. We'll do arati, and today is Ekadasi, the 11th day of the moon. And so our tradition, the Ramakrishna tradition, there's a series of hymns composed by Tulsidas Goswami. They call it Ramnam Sankirtan. It's the core of it is 108 names of Lord Ram that tell his entire life story, from before his birth to his ascension into heaven, and then surrounded by other hymns and some slokas. And so we have Hanuman and Ram on the side shrine. So after arati, we'll do the Ramnam Sankirtan hymns. And it's especially prayer. These are prayers to Lord Ram, right? But really, it's a way of invoking Lord Hanuman, because at the end, the secret of the whole thing is told in the last verse. O Lord Hanuman, wherever Ram's names are sung, there you go and bow with tears in your eyes, right? So if you want Ram to come, these mantras are designed to get Ram to come, to get Hanuman to come. Right? And we need Hanuman because he is the most intelligent, the most pure, the most controlled. Right? We need his blessings for this difficult thing called Bhakti Yoga. Shri Guru Maharaj Ji ki jai, Mahamaya ki jai, Swamiji Maharaj Ji ki jai, Sitaram Lakshma Hanuman ki jai, Ma Dakshineshwari Bhavatarini Dakshinakari ki jai. I kind of made it without coffee too much. Yes. Mangalam Bhakta Vrindevyo Sarvalokaya Mangalam Om Stapakaya Dharmasya Sarvararama Sarupine Avatar Varishtaya Ramakrishnaya Mangalam Om Anatatam Kuryami Swaha Om Vijitatam Kuryami Swaha Om Vijitatam Kuryami Swaha Om Aim Ring Ring Sarvadatam Shoryami Swam Vishnu 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 Dal Vishnu Paramam Param Sarapa Vishnu Sudhita Vishnu Kiradatam Om Avavidra Vitrova Sarvavastam Gato Piva Yashvare Pundari Kaksham Sabhaya Bhayandra Suchi Sri Vishnu Sri Vishnu Sri Vishnu Om Viram Naivijam Om Viram Naivijam Mahaka Om Om Vamittasmai 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 Strayapha Hum Yang Rang Paushada Vangri Om Green 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 Om Hakala Bhairava Sahidam Green Krishna Kalivai Devi Amrit Mahanaviri Vidyami Namaha. Etaparam Green Jima Dakshina Kaligai Nuparadchamayam Dakshina Kalivai Namaha Brahma Prakaram Om Ham Hanvate Dratmagaham Bhaganamate Namaha. Ring, 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 Panji Mahakarvaya Vitahida. Om Ring Krishna Kalvaya Sevam Darshiyami Namota. Jai Ma Bhavatarini Dakshina Kali ki Jai Bhagavanti Rama Krishna Paramahansa Deva ki Jai Jagannatha Sri Sharada Devi ki Jai Yugacharya Swami Vivekananda Maharaji ki Jai Purna Tirudrakkineshwar Dham ki Namah Parvati Patyaye Hara Hara Dharmane. Yeah. There's some. Oh, come back. In the book, there's.
Sorry about that.
I'm going to change the second swipe. Page. It's usually something I might be in a weird mode. Only the book can. Sorry, what this is. It's usually here. Do what you have talked about in the book. Anyway, it's not recent book. You can get one of my recent books. Somebody. Books with the Devanagari, it doesn't start on page 1, it starts on page. You see what page it starts on? Maybe right here.
Starts on page 34.
Behind you here. Shri Ramnam Sankirtan. Shri Kambuja Sri Raghunandanasya me Sarastu Sammanjale Mangalara Nilambuja Samala Kumbhalangaram Sita Samropitam Mammaharam Mano Mahasayakacharitabam Namami Ramaragandana Ulam Dharmatano Vivekajalani Purendum Mananana Parakyam Bhujavaskaram Nagadana Vandapaham Dhamsam Moham Mohabudha Punyapatnamiho Kisambhavam Shankaram Vande Brahma Gurum Shalakam Shamanam Viramabhumam Priyam Sandranam Vayorakam Sakrayasanam Itambaram Satsundaram Vanoman Shasaranam Tilakam Munirabharam Varam Rajivatamuksham Viditatam Vidimdu Samshovitam Sita Lakshmana Samyuktam Katakatam O Lord of the Ragus, shining the hearts of all, you know well that we speak the truth when we say that we have no other desire than this prayer. Grant us unshakable devotion to the glory of the Ragus. Free our minds from stains and lust forever. Om Sisita Lakshmana Bharata Anugraham Sanamatsaveta Sri Ramachandra Parabrahmane Shastotara-Shattanam Ramayanam Samartam. Jai Shri Ramachandra ki Jai. Jai Shri Mahavira Swamiji ki Jai. Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. 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 Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram.
Swami
जय महामहिमी जय जय भगवान श्याम कृष्ण देव की जय जय स्वामी जी महाराज की जय जय सीताराम लक्ष्मण हनुमान की जय जय माँ दक्षिणेश्वरी भवतारिणी दक्षिण काली की जय